Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chat from the Old Cap. My name is Tony Hakes. I'll be serving as your host today. We're just going to give everyone a few more minutes to get in from the waiting room, but we're very excited to have a very distinguished alumni in our presence today. If you would like to have closed captioning for today's program, you just simply need to click more and select the closed captioning button, and you can follow along through closed captioning. If you also wish to ask a question, Q&A function. So we've got some interview questions for our guest, and then we'll open it up towards the end for anybody that may want to submit some additional questions. As I mentioned, my name is Tony Hakes. I'm the Director of Regional Programs here at the University of Iowa Center for Advancement. Prior to being in advancement, I was actually a YMCA camp director for 12 years. And so this particular subject is very near and dear and close to my heart. I'd like to start by introducing our guest of honor, Charlie Becker. He is an Iowa graduate and the leader of Camp Courageous, and he's going to be talking about his experience working with individuals with special needs, providing humanitarian support around the world, and the impact of philanthropy. He is a 1976 grad from the College of Education and currently serves as the CEO of Camp Courageous, which provides residential services for those with special needs, and he also oversees operations and manages the foundation. Also, Charlie and his wife Pat have established the Pediatric Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy Fund at the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital in support of their grandson Cooper, who has the genetic condition. So Charlie, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate being here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I came up kind of in the camp world after I graduated from the University of Iowa, and the name Charlie Becker, you and I didn't meet until leading up to this, but the name Charlie Becker was thrown around in circles as kind of a legendary residential camping name. And so it's great to have you on our show and meet you in person.
I had my roots at Y Camp, so great programs, yeah, wonderful programs.
It indeed, yeah, we have nothing but fond memories of my time there. So let's talk a little bit about the University of Iowa. Where are you originally from, and how did you end up at Iowa?
I'm originally from Dubuque, and a good Iowa alumni by the name of Ernie Burrish wrote a book called The Advantage of Being Born Poor. A great book, and this is kind of like my roots. I grew up fairly poor, and Ernie just passed away on Sunday, a huge supporter of the University of Iowa, and just a wonderful person. So grew up in a fairly poor situation, and was in high school in 1969 through 73. And for those folks that don't remember, that's kind of during the Vietnam War. And I was looking at places to go. And the University of Iowa, came up there, and the University of Iowa was kind of a little bit of a hotbed for turbulence back during that time. And my draft number was 13. And a draft number of 13 was not a good number in many ways. And it ended up in 1973 when I graduated in January, President Nixon ended the draft. And so it gave me the opportunity to kind of relook at everything. And I said, wow, the University of Iowa would be the most wonderful place to go to for many reasons. One thing, growing up poor, my thumb was my car. And so it's excellent hitchhiking from Iowa City to Dubuque and from Dubuque to Iowa City. You couldn't beat it. Never had to wait more than 5 or 10 minutes for a ride, so that worked out pretty good. My dad had died when I was like a freshman in high school of cancer. So economically, it was something that I financially felt that I could do this. I could pull this off financially. Academically, just to give you an idea that anybody can do this, is I started off my academic career flunking kindergarten. So that starts, you can't get much lower than that. And then if I wanted to impress people, I'd tell them that, well, I had a high school GPA of a B minus, where in reality it was probably a C plus. My GPA, well, my ACT score, my guidance counselor said, well, you really did a lot better than I thought you would, which was an average score. And I was thrilled to death when I was accepted by the University of Iowa, thrilled to death. And I figured for the first time in my life, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to really work hard at this.
That's incredible. Hitchhiking alone, right?
Yeah, don't do that so much anymore.
That's a whole story in itself. So great. So you got to Iowa. You're happy to be there. Like, what were some of your first impressions? What were some of your favorite memories?
I think what's good about Iowa is it brought in people from all over. The social skills were kind of as much a part of that as the academics and everything. I lived in Burge, which a lot of times when you say the word Burge, a smile comes to people's face. It was just a neat time. So the war was over. People did streaking as opposed to protesting, so that was a lot better situation. I remember Roy Carver in the lobby of Burge Hall waiting for some students to come down, and they were going to fly to the NCAA wrestlings. First time I ever met somebody of that nature. I was really close to a person by the name of Moffett, Mr. Moffett. Mr. Moffett was in charge of financial aid, and so we got to be quite good friends, and just a real influence as far as he would find jobs. And so from raking leaves to all kinds of jobs, which I had the opportunity to work at. And so he really took an interest in me personally and in lots of students. And those of us that were working our way through college, he was a huge, huge help. So great first impressions. You know, it's scary coming to a big, huge university, but wow, did they make you feel welcome and just as part of a family.
That's true and great to hear, and something that we still pride ourselves on today. We have students come from very small towns. We have students come from big cities, Chicago, right? So I think that's great to hear, and to know that that tradition started, or was there when you were here, and still continues today. How do you think being at Iowa prepared you for your career?
I had some great teachers, and so I was very fortunate that way, who helped me with my career. There was a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Hafner. He was in the field of education, and another person that kind of I felt, everybody's treated equally, but I always kind of felt like these people took me under their wings. Dr. Hafner, I ended up getting a fellowship to teach over in Exeter, England, and Dr. Hafner came over and reviewed my educational opportunities and stuff like that, and how well I was doing over there. And I ended up down in Southeast Iowa teaching. So the University of Iowa prepared me for teaching. And when I resigned from teaching after 3 years in Southern Iowa, I felt it was more difficult for me to tell Dr. Hafner that I was going to be leaving teaching possibly than it was to tell the superintendent of schools. And so that was just the impression, and he was kind of hurt by it, and I felt terrible. And he ended up discovering what Camp Courageous was. He ended up supporting Camp Courageous until the day that he died. So very, very good impression. Also, my freshman year, I was thinking about going in law. And so they say, law, you need to take Latin. So I go to this Latin class, and the only people in that Latin class are graduate students who are studying language. And so I figured within a week or two, this isn't the place for me. There was an instructor by the name of Sister Luana Stefan. She was an actual sister, a nun. And she lived in a convent just a block away from the main Pentegrets there. And she would tutor me. And she would call me Carlitos. And Carlitos, I believe in Spanish, means little Charlie. And so she was just the sweetest, kindest lady. And she would just kind of take me under her wing once again and just help me along. So I remember when I first came to the University of Iowa as a freshman, you're in Hampshire Auditorium. Hampshire was fairly new. There's Willard Sandy Boyd, the president of the university. He was standing up before all of us. And something that always stuck with me is he said, look to the person to the right, look to the person to the left. He goes, only one of you are going to graduate. I'm going, so I looked both ways. So I thought, these people look pretty smart. So he must be talking about me. But luckily, one of the things that prepared me for my career is that it taught me how to study, and it taught me how not to quit. So even when your back is up against the wall, you stayed at it. It also taught me about diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of people, diversity of opinions. It just really broadened my horizons in lots and lots of areas and prepared me for my career and my future.
That's incredible. Sandy Boyd, legend. Hampshire probably was, I think Hampshire's 50th anniversary is coming up, so probably wasn't that too far along in its career. I mean, those are great stories and great to hear, and something we still pride ourselves on now. Diversity of thought, diversity of people, is still definitely a theme within our university. So that's really cool. So glad that you were able to hitchhike safely.
I don't do that anymore.
I hitchhiked once in my life, and that's after I owned a Harley Davidson. So very cool. So you went down teaching for a few years, and then Camp Courageous came calling. So was this in 1980?
Yeah, 1980. So okay. I love teaching, and I wanted to get back up in the Northeast Iowa, not home necessarily, but up in Northeast Iowa. And there wasn't any, I taught American government, there wasn't any teaching positions open. And so I looked in the Des Moines Register like a lot of people used to do then. And there was a executive director job at Camp Courageous. And I had done some volunteer work at a camp for people with special needs back during my teaching years. And I thought, maybe I'll apply here and just see what happens. It was in Monticello, and Monticello is where I did my student teaching. So I was very familiar with the community, and I thought, it's kind of like a Norman Rockwell picture. The kids have their bikes up against the fence at the pool, and nobody locks their doors, and just what a great community maybe to raise a family. So the community drew me as much as the job. So I came to Camp Courageous, and when I was teaching school, I was making 17 grand a year, and I was coaching and teaching, and I had yearbook, and I had student council, and just all those things. And I worked 181 days a year, and then I went to Camp Courageous, still made 17 grand a year, and it was 365 days a year. So it was, some things didn't change, but it really did. But I figured I'll give it 2 years, kind of like the Peace Corps, where you go and you do it for 2 years, and as soon as a teaching job would open, I'd be gone. And that was my thought and kind of going into it. But 43 years later, it's still here. You never know. You never know. And that goes back to the diversity and the teaching of the University of Iowa. It teaches you to do a lot of things, and and then you just go a particular direction.
Well, and camp is so true. I mean, you're doing dishes one day, and you're raising money the next, and you're cleaning bathrooms the next, and you're recruiting and hiring and training staff.
Absolutely.
I think that diversity of having to know a little about a lot of different things sounds like it was a really important part of your career. So tell us about Camp Courageous. What do you do? What's your mission?
So the Camp Courageous is a year-round recreational and a respite care facility for people with special needs. And just in the last number of years, we started doing a lot more traveling with campers. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary. So back in 1972, there was 40 acres of land that was donated for the camp. In 73, they put up the first 5 buildings out of donated labor on donated land and donated materials. 74, the first campers came. 2011 campers, summertime program. So fast forward 50 years, and pre-pandemic, we're up to nearly 10,000 campers in a year-round program, a staff of 100. We went from 5 buildings to 35 buildings. We went from 40 acres to 400 acres. And so the whole place is just really grown over the years. So we've been very, very fortunate.
That's incredible. 40 to 400 acres is quite a jump. And 10,000 campers being served?
Yes.
So tell us more about these campers. What services do you provide?
What we do is we homogeneously group the campers. So on a particular week in the summer, there'll be Muscular Dystrophy Week. There'll be, we have Stroke Week this weekend. We'll do individuals with Down syndrome. We'll do, we help start the Iowa Brain Injury Association. We have a week just for people with brain injuries. And so when they come out to camp, one of the interesting things about the pandemic is that what we realized was what an important role that we play in the lives of some of our campers. So say, for example, you have muscular dystrophy, you live in Monticello, Iowa, Cascade, Iowa, some small town. You're the only person probably in that town with muscular dystrophy. So when you come to Camp Courageous, whatever the disability might be, as well as we have a brand new zip line, we all have all kinds of wonderful activities and great staff, but there's also the opportunity to socialize with 100 other people that have the same disability that you have. So it's great that we're all mainstreamed and things like that, but once in a while, it's nice to sit down and visit with somebody that has the same situations that you have and to share that. And we find that, lasting relationships, start as a result of that. So a typical week is campers come in on Sunday, they leave on Friday. We have respite care weekends where parents can leave off their children on Friday afternoon and come back on Sunday and pick them up. We have emergency respite care, so at any hour of the day or night, parents can phone us up and explain to us what their emergency is, and we'll take their child until the emergency is over. And we also have the travel program where we take campers all over Iowa, all over the United States, and we've done some foreign travel to Germany and some other places with campers. So there's quite a variety of different activities that we offer now.
It's incredible. And for those of you watching, Charlie is in his office, and that is very much what a camp office looks like.
I cleaned the table behind me, so yeah.
Okay, yeah, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, it's obviously it's been staged or cleaned. So you've been camping for a number of years. I mean, how did you get started there? Like, what led you down that path where I'm like, hey, I'm going to give residential camping a try?
It's something that I just remember back years ago growing up in Dubuque and was very involved in something called area residential care. When it first started out, I remember our milkman, which very few people ever heard of a milkman, but our milkman that delivered our milk to our house, he had a son with muscular dystrophy. And just that interest in helping people with different special needs and stuff like that just kind of grew over the years. And so it's one of those things that, you know, for me, I have more luck than I have sense, and, you know, just all fell into place.
What are some of the most significant changes you've seen in your 43-year career? I mean, I saw a lot of changes in my 12 years. I can't imagine, you know, how things started for you and where you're at now.
Something that was kind of fun this weekend is back when I first started at Camp Courageous, there was a real stigma for people like our campers, and it was not very well socially accepted. There is just a stigma. And it was exciting for me this past weekend that the Monticello High School wanted to have their prom pictures taken at Camp Courageous. I'm going, wow, have we ever come a long ways from there being a stigma and nobody really wanted to be associated with the camp to young people wanting their prom pictures taken here. And that's been going on the last few years. So that makes you really feel good that things have come an awful long ways. I feel good that I had the good fortune of knowing people like Tate Cummins. Tate Cummins was a sports broadcaster for Iowa Sports back years ago, a legend before Dolph and Ron Gonder and everybody else. So he had a son, Charlie, who had some special needs, mentally disabled, and they had Tate's wife was Dottie Cummins, a journalist major at the University of Iowa, and they really started trailblazing programs like Camp Courageous for those with special needs. So it's good for me to have known them back when I started at camp and seen a lot of their dreams coming true. In other words, back then, you know, there's a lot of folks, you know, that just kept their special needs child at home. And it's just come so far. There's now government programs to help the families. It's just come so far compared to 50 years ago. So it's been nice to be a part of that and see all the growth. Otherwise, latex gloves. When I first came to camp, I don't remember a lot of latex gloves, except in nursing, maybe a little bit. Now we buy latex gloves by the pallet. And so that's really changed. Medications, you know, not a lot of medications years ago, tons of medications now. Our nursing department has an abundance of work. Special diets, lots and lots of special diets now. So it's just kind of a little bit more complicated than what it used to be. We make it look really easy on the outside, but there's a little bit more complication to it. We've been fortunate, I think continuity, whether it's continuity at the university, continuity at any place, in my opinion, is really good. There's a lot of parents that think, oh, there's no way anybody can take care of the special needs of my child. But, you know, our program director that just retired a couple years ago, she had been here nearly 40 years. Our nursing director was here nearly 40 years. Just a lot of people have stayed here a long time. And I'm really big on recruiting the very, very best, treating them extremely well, and hopefully they'll stay with you for a long, long, long time. And so there's not much that we haven't seen and we can't handle here. So we're fortunate that way.
That's fantastic and great philosophy. Great to hear that. I know when I first started, cell phones were a problem. Campers were bringing cell phones in, and man, you can take a picture and get it out there. I mean, that was just a real problem for me. So, how's the pandemic been? Like, what you've probably been impacted by more heavily than others out there with your campers. How have you survived the pandemic?
So we never kind of formally closed. We always kind of stayed open, but we didn't have group activities. And so we had parents of campers bringing their children out to fish and do a wide variety of activities. They would go bowling and things like that. But we're just now kind of getting this year starting to get back into full speed ahead. This year we will still, with the staffing, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge year yet, but we're fortunate is we're unique from the standpoint that when we're serving campers, we're spending lots of money, and when you don't serve campers, you save a lot. And Tony, you and I were talking about swimming pools, and so during the pandemic, we drained our pool, we replastered it, put in new lights, remodeled the whole building. We did a lot of construction and building during the pandemic. We put in a new zip line. The zip line starts, we annexed on the United Methodist camp across the road from us a few years ago. The zip line starts down along like ground level, and then it takes you back 700 feet to a hilltop, and you're over 100 feet up in the air, and then it zips you down. And so any of the listeners that want to come out and try that out, it's open to the public. We're also building a multi-purpose field where we have baseball and pickleball and all kinds of things like that. We built new docks for our fishing area. Just did all kinds of new construction during the pandemic. So we didn't stand still. We just made tons of improvements to the camp.
That's also great to hear, right? Like, if you can't serve that as many campers as you were, you might as well upgrade your facility. That zip line sounds all right. I would try it at night, maybe. Do you do night zipping? No?
Yep, you can. You can bring the kids up, and we'll be all set.
Okay. So, like, in looking ahead, where do you kind of see the future of camping, of your specific, group that you serve? Where do you see that sort of headed?
I think it will continue to grow. It's going to take us a year or two to get back into the swing of things, in particular with staffing. We've just have a doctor now on the staff that his job is to go to universities and colleges and recruit interns. So we see a lot more people come from the universities and colleges. Our respite care weekends are full of University of Iowa students and therapeutic rec and all kinds of specialties. And so we hope through giving them this experience that they'll join with us and maybe find a career here.
So we actually had a question come in regarding that. Do you have any official partnership or program for University of Iowa students?
We do. We're really kind of busy with the internships and stuff like that. And so almost any field that you're in, you could do an internship program here and get college credit. And what's unique to Courageous is that, like, when I student taught, I got paid $0. And so that was just part of student teaching. But we have a program here where we give a stipend basically to our interns, and because we're expecting a little bit more from them than the average intern position, and so we treat them, we provide them room, board, and a little stipend for them. So it's kind of a good situation.
Yeah, that's a win-win.
Yeah.
So great, incredible career with Camp Courageous, incredible work that you do. The fact that you said students wanted to have their prom pictures out there, I think is like a great, incredible accomplishment. So congrats there. How important is philanthropy to Camp Courageous?
It is very important. Of course, running entirely on donations is a huge part of it. My philosophy has always been to, plant a lot of seeds. So I give lots and lots of programs out there and plant the seeds, and hopefully some of those will blossom out. And one of our more interesting things, back in 1980, there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Earl D. Shaw. And Dr. D. Shaw came to the board and said, hey, I got this great idea to start a foundation for the camp. And he told the board, I won't bother any of the current donors. And so his goal was to find 100 people to give $1,000 a year for 5 years and raise $500,000. And he told the board he wouldn't bother any of the current donors. So then he came to me and he said, Charlie, you got to be one of the first ones. So once again, this is 1980, and I was living off my teaching salary. And so I wasn't making any money off Camp Courageous yet. Camp Courageous owed a lot of people a lot of money when I came here. There was somebody in the process of suing the camp for not paying. They were raising money for an indoor pool, and they had spent that to make ends meet. So it wasn't the best time to be putting money in savings. And Doc said, he goes, Charlie, he goes, it's $20 a week. Surely you can afford $20 a week. And I also had just bought a $52,000 house at an interest rate of 14.5%. I'm going, okay, we'll do it. And I don't recommend this for married folks out there, but I didn't tell my wife about this till, probably a couple years into it. But yeah, I signed, it was definitely the largest obligation I ever made, as far as $20 a week for 5 years. And so, and at the same time, I was thinking, I don't know how long this is going to last, but I sincerely feel over the years, one of the things I've learned for me, that the more I give, the more it comes back to me many times over. And so, and I think sometimes during my most challenging times, I've borrowed money to give donations, which is probably, once again, not something I necessarily recommend, but it's really worked out well for me. I've been very fortunate, very well blessed. And going back to the University of Iowa, one of the most influential people in my life has been a guy by the name of Dave Dirks. Dave started with the University of Iowa Foundation 50 years ago. I think he's just a month or two away from 50 years. So we're just going to call it 50 years. I remember him telling the story that he was over in Chicago and Roy Carver was there. And Roy said, we need to hire this guy. I'm going, whoa, that's a good recommendation. And so because there isn't a lot up here, Dave has been my go-to person over the last 43 years. Anytime when somebody has something complicated, it doesn't take much to be complicated for me. I could just phone up Dave. Never a sense of competition. His integrity is unswerving. He's just one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. If anybody out there is ever interested in going into nonprofits, anything like what I've gone in, anything like that, I'd really strongly recommend. Dave did something. You can go on YouTube and go Life with Phil, and just type in Dave Dirks. His last name is Dierks. Life with Phil Talk by Dave Dirks. And he does the most outstanding discussion of philanthropy. And just he's just been a real significant person in my life in a lot of ways.
We love Dave.
Yeah.
But, anytime I get to spend with him is time well spent. And I'm glad that he was able to be such a big help for you and the camp. That's really great to hear. I'll make sure Dave might be on this call. So Camp Courageous is, you don't charge campers to go?
No, it's what we call camperships. So nobody's turned away because of financial needs. Back when I first started here, there's a doctor from Cedar Rapids that said, hey, Charlie, I'm not going to take charity. I want to pay something. So we start off with like 50 cents an hour, then $1 an hour. I think it's up to about $5 an hour, but one just has to say they're in need, and we just money. We don't ask for any financial reports. We don't ask for anything. It's just, I need camperships. So
that's incredible. So you have had a very philanthropic career yourself. You just got back from Poland.
True.
So tell us a little bit about that. What you said that every time you are feeling philanthropic, it seems to come back to benefit you tenfold. But tell us a little bit more about sort of your own career in philanthropy.
Okay. Well, I'll jump around just a little bit. So I went to a field program. So your department has a program about Phil, and I was the guest of Joanne and Ernie Burrish, and Sue Beckwith was the speaker. So Sue, I knew Sue's dad, Bill, quite well. And Sue is younger than me. She's a class of 80, and I think she graduated from med school, mid 80s or so, played basketball there. So she was the keynote speaker, and I knew Sue. And so before she spoke, I went up to Sue and I said, "Hey, Sue, what's your thoughts as far as retirement? I know you're younger than me, and I'm not retiring, but what's your thoughts on retirement?" And Sue looked at me, and it's something that obviously stuck in my brain, is that she goes, "I'm able to do all these wonderful things because I work, and I'm able to make money, and then I'm able to do all these great things." That always stuck with me, and that's the way I feel about my own career right now. In other words, I'm past 65 by 2 or 3 years, and I can't wait to get to work in the morning. I get here at 4:45 in the morning, and I can't wait for the day to start. I love my work, and I'm healthy and well, so I'm very, very fortunate that way. But this gives me the ability to do other things. This gives me the ability to support the university. This gives me the ability to do, my son Chad, every year I'd go to his teachers, the teacher would go, "There's something about Chad, there's a word, and then we would volunteer, Pat and I would volunteer the word impulsive. And they go, "Yeah, that's it, impulsive." So he's got a little bit of that from his dad. So a few weeks ago, probably about 3 weeks ago, I'm sitting here at my desk and it's 2:30 in the afternoon. So I put in my 10-hour day or whatever already. I type a note to Chad and said, "Chad, this is your crazy dad, talking to my crazy son. What's your thoughts about taking a week off and going over to Ukraine and do some volunteer work in Poland?" And he goes, "I'm on board." So at that time, he works for some hospitals down in the Des Moines area, and he was out. He did his residency out in Palm Springs, California. He was out in California. He went once every couple of months. He goes out there just to work in the ER for a few days. And so he's on board. And so he gathered a ton of medical supplies from out in California. This was Thursday at 2:30. By Thursday night, we got the plane tickets to Warsaw, Poland, and we're off and going. So I talked to United Airlines, and I said, "How many pounds will you allow us to take, you humanitarian?" And they said 100 pounds apiece. So we packed in 200 pounds of medical supplies, pure medical supplies. And then we picked up some additional things along the way, and we were off to Poland, to Warsaw, and then down to Krakow, and then we drove into Ukraine, went to Lviv, and met up with some hospital people that we had met up with before, had made arrangements before. And part of our objective was to not trailblaze necessarily, but get a path, because we knew some other medical people and stuff like that wanted to do the same, and figure out, okay, who's our best contacts, who's not a good contact, which way to go and stuff like that. It was an incredible experience. And I did have a note here from, so there's a guy by the name of Sam Akina. Sam is from Ankeny originally. So he was one of our main contacts. He was a film producer over there. He decided to stay in Warsaw, Poland. And so he wrote a note on Facebook and says, "Today, Chad Becker, an ER doctor from Iowa, traveled to Warsaw with a desire to volunteer either at the border or in Ukraine, wherever he would be most useful. Over the past few days, his wife were able to connect with Chad and his father, me, with representatives from the Ministry of Health in Ukraine. Tonight, they are heading to Krakow and will travel towards the border, where they will help to make a difference. In addition to over 100 pounds each of medical supplies, which are traveling with them, they are delivering a large shipment of trauma kits, tourniquets, blood clotting agents, and solar-powered batteries, drones, and tactical supplies that we purchased entirely through donations from our friends in this network." And so it's just a little thank you. So, it's being impulsive once in a while is interesting and fun. And so, so that was one. And it's just nice to be at that point in your life where, I'm past 65. And so there's a sense of freedom, like, let's go off and do something good. So a lot of enjoyment comes back.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You're inspiring me. I'm going to look into this myself. Tell us about your grandson, Cooper.
Okay. Back in 1969, just strange how things happen. Back in 69, I'm in Dubuque, and we had the first Muscular Dystrophy Association telethon in the state of Iowa. And so then after that, every year I did the telethon for years and years. And then it ended up when I came to Camp Courageous, we started a Muscular Dystrophy Week that was just set aside for people with muscular dystrophy. And then 10 years ago, my grandson was born, Cooper, and he has muscular dystrophy. So we got to know Dr. Matthews. Dr. Matthews, there at the Stead Children's Hospital, is a huge celebrity at Camp Courageous. she comes up during Muscular Dystrophy Week, and everybody loves her, everybody knows her, and she's the one that's really fighting for them. So we got close with her, and then we started the Pediatric Duchenne's Muscular Dystrophy Fund at the Stead Family Children's Hospital. And what's really neat, and this is what I love about her and her team, is so we started this several years ago. And so they're going to a conference in Chicago, and it's a conference for muscular dystrophy. And so some of the staff and Dr. Matthews and that write back, and they don't go to a motel. They can with a bunch of friends, saving money. And so they're staying with friends. They're bringing some of their own food. They're stretching that fund dollars about as far as you could possibly stretch them. So we just feel really good about that. Here recently, we did a $25,000 match, and so we're happy about that. And once again, we started this fund a few years ago, and my goal is to try to get it up to 100,000 here before too long. And once again, Dr. Matthews does research into muscular dystrophy, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy in particular. So we love her work, and we love the university.
Another example of a high quality medical care that we offer in addition to world-class learning institution. That's really great to hear. And I think your goal of 100,000 is nearing kind of the halfway point, is what I heard from some of our folks that joined us earlier. So thank you so much. It's going to change lives for the better, right? I mean, that's really the whole point. So very, very glad to hear that. And what an incredible career and philanthropic life you've led. And I can't thank you enough. You're a fantastic alumni doing great things.
Oh, I treasure my years at the University of Iowa, and I've never left the university. And as I mentioned, Dave and the whole, everybody's there to help. And so it's not 4 years of your life or 3 years or whatever it might be. It's a commitment for a lifetime. So we appreciate all that everyone's doing there.
Yeah, and Annabelle has put in a few links to some of Dave's Phil talks in the chat, also to Ernie's book and a few other things. So check out the chat. I've had a couple questions come in, so if you'd like to ask a question for Charlie, you can use the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. First one, 43 years is an incredible contribution to such a special place. Do you recall some of your first goals or initiatives when you started at Camp Courageous, and how are those now realized in your work today?
To be honest, my first goal was to survive. And so it was financially, tough. One of my first memories, there was a gentleman by the name of Cleet Gecken. Cleet was in his 70s, retired farmer. He was our only maintenance person. So Cleet and I would bring, a few bags of garbage over to the Jones County landfill, and then we dig through people's stuff and grab out 2x4s and everything we could use at camp. And so after a couple of weeks of doing that, the gentleman that ran that place said, "You old man and you young kid," I was 25 years old, "get out of here and never come back." And so I never did go back, but it kind of, I think those humble beginnings are really, really important, because I never lose sight of that. No matter how good Camp Courageous gets, no matter how many lives are touched, no matter, what happens, is those humble beginnings, I think, are really, really important to have. I'm glad I started when I did. That's
an incredible story.
Everything's a highlight.
Yeah, I feel like I in a couple situations was saving 2x4s and random stuff that we had found.
Yeah.
At least have on hand.
Yep.
That is the camp director's life. Okay, a couple other questions here. Camp Courageous is such a warm and inviting community. Would you share your favorite memories of the many hosted events over the years? And there's some examples. So pineapple gala, car show, pancake breakfast.
So let's start with pineapples. So a guy by the name of Marty Kloska came to Cedar Rapids, and he brought a new enthusiasm for United Airlines. And he said, we're going to pick a charity and support them, and we're going to fly in pineapples straight from Hawaii. And they went and they took a look at all the grocery stores. And like during the month of August, all the grocery stores in the city of Cedar Rapids sold like 8 pineapples. So people are saying, nah, this isn't such a great idea. But Marty went steadfast forward on it. And so the next thing you know, we were bringing in 800 cases of 6 pineapples to a case, pineapples for 3 weekends to Cedar Rapids, and we were selling pineapples. And then Stouffer's Five Seasons Hotel just opened downtown a year after that. And so then we went down there and we started having a pineapple gala. And then it ended up that Marty would fly in Hawaiian entertainment, all kinds of things would happen. And so we continue that tradition now, and it's in memory of Tate and Dottie Cummins. But, you know, a gentleman came to me, he goes, Charlie, I got this great idea for a fundraiser for Camp Courageous. He goes, I want to donate a recipe I've been working on for 20 years. It's a fruitcake recipe, and then we'll sell fruitcakes. I'm thinking, what food has the worst reputation of any food in the whole world? It's got to be fruitcakes. I'm thinking this is the worst idea I've ever heard. And the next thing you know, we're in the fruitcake business, and we've done very well at that too. So, you know, and it's all grassroots, just a lot of people getting involved. Our largest fundraiser is the Manchester Garage Sale, located in Manchester, Iowa. The Norby's donated a building, run 100% on volunteers, no paid people. People bring things in, people come and buy. It's a wonderful fundraiser. And who would have guessed a garage sale? And it goes year round. Solar panels on top. We have solar panels throughout Camp Courageous. Our electric bill used to be $12,000, $13,000, $14,000, and it's now $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. So we're just really into sustainability and things like that too.
Love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
This person didn't have a question, but just wanted to join this event to personally express my thanks for the difference you made in my cousin's life. He recently passed away and always looked forward to telling us about his visit to Camp Courageous. So thanks for all that you do. So what can we do as volunteers? How can we help support Camp Courageous?
Volunteers can do a variety of things. They can do everything from volunteering, being a counselor with campers. There's always something maintenance. We just added the 78 acres of Future Rocks Methodist Camp. And there's always maintenance to do, always construction to do, always dietary things. If you have a big garden at home and you overproduce vegetables and things like that, all that stuff saves us a tremendous amount of money. And so just anything that you enjoy doing, office work, things like that, there's always some place that you can volunteer. We have a volunteer coordinator now. His name is Toby. Toby started out as a volunteer at Camp Courageous. He's from Germany. And short story is that somebody pulls my window, I can see who's coming and going. And there's somebody pulling up, in a Mercedes Benz. And this is back a number of years ago. And I thought, oh, this is probably somebody I need to visit with. And I introduced myself and goes, yeah, I'm Toby, I'm here to volunteer. I'm going, okay. And so he started out as a volunteer counselor out here. And it ends up that an uncle in Atlanta said, you volunteer here in the United States, I'll let you borrow a car for a year. And so that's what he did. And of course, all the other counselors got to have rights in it, but Toby is now our volunteer coordinator, does a wonderful job, but we welcome volunteers anytime, anywhere. And likewise, if you ever like to have a program on Camp Courageous at any hour of the day or night, and once again, going back to the beginning of this program, it's like, just try to plant a lot of seeds. I don't ask people for money. I just tell them what we do and just see what grows from there.
That's terrific. And this all started because we partnered with the College of Engineering to have an event out there with the DNR. So there you go. UICA is already been supportive, which is very cool.
And that was an excellent program. We got, so the engineering students came up and they did their projects here. And the beauty is some of those are going to come back in the months and years ahead and see those come into reality. So great bunch of students, very, very impressive. And great teachers, yeah. Instructors too.
Yeah, that's again, another great program. So I think we'll end with this. Can you give a plug about the VW van you are giving away later this year?
Thank you. That's good. That's good. So as you get a little older, you start getting rid of things. And so Chad had a friend out in California that was going to do a hike, and she had an old beat up van, and she needed money. And so she goes, my dad's always been interested in an old VW van. And so this is a California VW van. And so I ended up buying it off her, had it transported back to the state of Iowa. There's a strap around the top of it. And this car has Mercedes-Benzes, it's got Ferraris, it's got all these hot cars, and they're this old van on this car transport. And so we fixed it up, we painted it, we redid the interior, we redid everything. And so it's in 1971, and in honor of the camp's 50th anniversary, we donated the van to the camp We're selling raffle tickets for it. You can go to campcourageous.org and purchase a ticket. And we hope it's going to be quite successful. We're going to have the drawing the last day of the year on December 31st of 2022. We're going to draw for it, and somebody's going to have a nice little van. It's got a little camper on it. It's very cool.
I love it already, and I'm going to get a raffle ticket because we've got a driver. Well, yeah, so we'll have a 16-year-old at that point.
There you go.
He can have my minivan, and I'll take the BMW.
Great.
This has been fantastic, Charlie. Thank you so much. What an incredible career and inspiration to countless numbers of families, and your own philanthropic career has really been incredible. So had a great time talking with you, and look forward to getting out there to be part of your events and volunteer and hopefully win a van.
Sounds great, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity. It's once again, the more seeds we plant, the more it's good for everybody. So I can't thank you enough for the opportunity.
Well, the honor has been all ours. So thank you so much. And we'll end here, but appreciate talking with you again and learn about all the cool stuff you have going on. And once a Hawkeye, always a Hawkeye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
You bet. See you.